Welcome back to the top 75 United States Speedway riders of the 1970s. The countdown continues, and we're gonna start off with number 29. Coming in at number 29 was a gifted flat tracker. He was flawless. The guy was good. And who was that? Number 29 is Big Rob Morrison. Rob was best known as a flat tracker. That guy could fly, he hauled butt. And he didn't race Speedway for that long, but when he raced Speedway, Rob Morrison was a very fast rider. Rob was a member of the Los Angeles Sprockets of the National Speedway League, the second place Los Angeles Sprockets. He raced with Bruce Penhall, Mike Bass, Gene Woods. Rob Morrison was one of the good riders on that team, and the reason why they got second place at the top of the National Speedway League. That's Rob Morrison. Number 28 on the countdown is number 33, and he was a bullet. He was fast, he was wild, he was a good rider, he was a lot of fun. And who was the number 33? Billy the Bullet Meisner. If your nickname is the Bullet, you're a fast rider, right? We had Billy the Bullet Hamill, and the first Bullet was Billy Meisner. He was good and he was fast, and he's still on Facebook today. The guy's a character, and he's just, so he can fit in his own Speedway uniform, the old one. And from back in the day, Billy is just a character. He's a good guy, and that's number 28, Billy the Bullet. And next we have a member of the Bakersfield Bandits, the champion Bakersfield Bandits of the 70s. And he was a good rider. That guy could ride, and he won some main events. He was just a good, solid rider. And he was a member of the National Speedway League champion Bakersfield Bandits. And who was that? It was Brian Thumper Short. Brian raced all the top riders of the 70s. He was good, he competed against them. He was fearless. Brian was just a solid rider, and he was really good. Number 27 was a multi-time national champion. This guy was a legend, a true living legend. However, in the 70s, he was just a starting rider. He was a startup, but he was really fast. And who was that? He was number 9 and number 1, and that's Flying Mike Faria. Mike was a gifted motocross rider when he started racing Speedway. A friend of mine, Jerry, he texts me every day. He sends me emails of Speedway. He said that he had introduced Mike Faria, I think through his grandpa or something, on a bus conductor. He said, "Hey Mike, there's a Speedway. Why don't you come out and see the Speedway races?" And Mike Faria was a motocross rider, and he came out and checked out the Speedway, and the rest was history. Mike Faria is a true and living legend of the sport of Speedway. Next we have a really good rider. He was number 4. He was good, he was solid, the guy was fast. And who was that? He said his number 4, and that's Dave Sims. Dave is another one of those highly talented riders who raced and competed against all the top Division I riders in the 70s. He was good, he was gifted, he was talented, and we tip our hat to this really good rider named Dave Sims. Number 26 was number 31. He was young, he was fearless, this guy was fast. He competed against all the top riders of the 70s. He was just an amazing rider, and he was talented, and he lost his life at an early age. But he was talented in the years that he raced Speedway. He was a gifted rider. And who is that? It's Guy Watterson. Next we have Scott Autry's BFF. He was a good rider. He raced a few years in the United States, and then he went over to the British League over the pond. He was a talented rider. He was really gifted. The guy was tough. He was tough as nails. And who was that? And that was Steve Grisham. a friend of mine on Facebook, and he's a cool dude. And Steve was one of those riders back in the day you didn't want to make mad, because Steve, like I said, was a tough dude. And Steve was really a good rider, and he was just a cool guy. I wish I had raced with Steve. But anyways, Steve Gresham was one of the top riders of the 70s. Coming in at number 25, he was just a talented rider. He was Mr. Ascot. He raced TT, he was talented. He was one of the most unbelievable riders in the TT circuit. This guy was good, and he switched over to Speedway. The guy he's a legend. I mean, he's a living legend. And he sang, he had records, and he had all kinds of cool stuff. We did some shows on him. You want to check it out? It's number 7, lucky number 7, and that's Sammy Tanner. Like I mentioned, I made a few vlogs on Sammy, and he was just a living legend. He was unbelievable. The guy won all these races in a row, and he wore a white uniform. He wore the white uniform because he was always in the front. He wanted people to see him. A lot of times in the old days, they used to wear black so they couldn't see where they're at. However, Sammy, he wore white. Why? Because he was always in first place. Coming in at number 24 was another solid rider, and he was an Orange County Eagle on the National Speedway League. He was a good rider. He rode with Rick Woods. And who was that? And he rode with Danny Berserko Becker, and that is Mike Monty. Number 23 on the countdown, he was another good rider. However, this guy was from Scotland. He had those bagpipes and that kilt, and he was just a fantastic rider. People underestimated him. However, he was a good British League rider. He came over to the States. He kicked butt on the Bakersfield Bandits. The champions! He helped win that championship, and he was just an underrated, fantastic rider. And who was that? That's Bert Hawkins. Bert's a friend of mine on Facebook, and he raced against all those top riders, European riders of the old days, and he was there. He was riding them, he was winning, and Bert Hawkins just has this record a mile long. He's still active. He's a good guy. He does like a museum in Speedway, and he's a big promoter of Speedway. He's a representative of the sport for his lifetime. He's an honorary member of the Speedway world, and we honor and respect Bert. The countdown continues. The top 75 United States Speedway riders of the 70s. We're down to number 23 on the countdown. We're coming close. We're episode 3. So stay tuned. We got a couple more episodes left of the top riders. We judge this according to their ability or what they did in the 70s, not the 80s, not the 90s, the 70s. And these guys are fantastic. So we appreciate you hanging out with us today on the beautiful beach of Boracay Island. It's really great here. It's nice. We've got the coconut trees, the palm trees, the white beach, and we have you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on the beach with the top 75 countdown, and we're at number 23. So thank you once again, and we're gonna see you next time.